Her name is Emily. She's not lazy, but every morning she needs hours just to leave her bedroom. Not because she doesn't want to live her life, but because her mind demands that she check the stove 10 times, wash her hands until they're raw, and ensure she hasn't unknowingly harmed someone. But the most painful part of living with OCD isn't always the symptoms, it's the reactions from others. You just worry too much. Just relax. That's what people say. Today, we're diving deep into the most common mistakes people make when trying to help those with OCD, mistakes that professionals warn can make things worse, not better. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness, compassion, and healing. Because no one should suffer in silence. One of the most common and damaging mistakes is to trivialize OCD. In pop culture, it's portrayed as being neat or quirky. I'm so OCD, people joke when they color coordinate their closet. But OCD isn't a personality trait. It's a debilitating mental illness rooted in neurological dysfunction. It often coexists with anxiety and depression and can be completely invisible to the outside world. In the brain, regions like the orbitofrontal cortex and caudate nucleus are overactive, creating a faulty alarm system. This causes persistent intrusive thoughts, obsessions, that provoke intense anxiety. These aren't harmless worries. They can be terrifying, violent, taboo, or existential in nature. Take Chris, a college student from Ohio, who was plagued by intrusive images of stabbing his girlfriend, even though he deeply loved her and would never hurt anyone. Instead of getting help, he hid in shame, terrified that he was a monster. But he wasn't dangerous. He had harm-themed OCD, a subtype that is rarely talked about but very real. The mistake of misunderstanding OCD can isolate sufferers, delay treatment, and cause immense emotional pain. The broader mistake here is equating OCD with neatness or perfectionism. Someone can have messy surroundings and still suffer profoundly from OCD. For example, Hannah from Minnesota has Puro, a type of OCD where the compulsions are mental. She can appear calm and collected, but internally, she's locked in a loop of praying and repeating mental phrases to neutralize thoughts about hurting her dog. It's relentless and invisible. And the joke, "I'm a little OCD," hurts more than it helps. Another mistake professionals highlight is focusing too much on the compulsions, what we can see, and ignoring the obsessions that drive them. Obsessions are the engine of OCD, unwanted thoughts, images, or urges that trigger anxiety. Compulsions are attempts to neutralize that anxiety. If we only try to stop the compulsions without understanding the obsessions, we're treating the smoke, not the fire. For example, Sarah, a high school teacher in Vermont, had religious OCD. She feared she was sinning constantly and repeated prayers for hours each night. When her therapist told her to simply stop the compulsions without addressing her deep fear of damnation, her anxiety skyrocketed. She felt abandoned and spiritually broken. The treatment failed because it lacked compassion and understanding of the emotional pain beneath the surface. The key is to explore the core fears, the what-ifs. What if I offend God? What if I go to hell? What if I'm not really who I think I am? Only when we address these deeper fears, through exposure work and cognitive restructuring, can we hope to quiet the compulsive urges. Ignoring the obsessions is like trying to fix a leak by drying the floor without sealing the pipe. It's natural to want to reassure someone you love. But for someone with OCD, repeated reassurance becomes part of the problem. OCD thrives on uncertainty. Reassurance seeking is a compulsion. It's a way to temporarily reduce anxiety. But like a drug, it wears off quickly, and the sufferer needs another hit. Professionals call this the reassurance loop. Take Mike, a 27-year-old from Toronto, who constantly asked his girlfriend if she still loved him. If she hesitated for even a second, his anxiety spiked. The more she reassured him, the more he asked. In therapy, he learned that his OCD was attacking his relationship OCD, or ROCD, and the only way out was to stop seeking certainty and start tolerating doubt. Family and friends may feel guilty for not providing reassurance. But therapists often coach them to shift from providing certainty to offering support through validation. I know you're feeling really anxious right now, and I'm here with you while you sit with that. Therapies like acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, help people understand that peace doesn't come from having all the answers, but from learning to live without needing them. Avoidance seems safe. If touching doorknobs causes anxiety, why not just use tissues? If violent thoughts come while holding knives, just avoid the kitchen, right? Wrong. Avoidance fuels OCD. It teaches the brain that the feared stimulus is dangerous, even when it's not. Exposure and response prevention, ERP, the gold standard in OCD treatment, teaches people to face their fears, not run from them. Take Jake from Melbourne, Australia. He had contamination OCD and couldn't touch anything in public. Through ERP, he started with small steps, touching a doorknob and not washing afterward. His anxiety spiked, but eventually it dropped. Over time, his brain rewired itself. He no longer believed the world was toxic. Without exposure, OCD shrinks your world. With it, you take your life back. Avoidance is seductive because it feels immediately effective. But over time, it becomes a prison. Every time we avoid, we teach our brain that the fear is real. We confirm the lie OCD tells us. ERP, though uncomfortable at first, is a declaration of freedom. It says, I see you, OCD. I hear your alarm, but I will not obey it anymore. Not all therapy is helpful for OCD. In fact, working with the wrong therapist can make things worse. General talk therapy, trauma therapy, or insight-based approaches may be ineffective or even harmful if they don't address the specific mechanisms of OCD. Rachel, a freelance writer in London, saw 5 therapists before finding the right one. One wanted to dig into her childhood to understand her fear of blurting out racist slurs in public. But Rachel didn't have trauma, she had pure OCD. The obsessive thoughts weren't reflections of her character, they were the opposite. What she needed was ERP and psychoeducation, not childhood analysis. Therapists unfamiliar with OCD may unintentionally reinforce compulsions by providing reassurance or interpreting intrusive thoughts as meaningful. The International OCD Foundation and other experts recommend working with clinicians trained in ERP or OCD-specific CBT. The right match can mean the difference between years of suffering and genuine progress. Therapy is not one size fits all. It's a relationship, and for people with OCD, the therapist must not only be competent but confident in walking them through the fire of uncertainty. Many people try to fight their intrusive thoughts by replacing them, distracting themselves, or shouting back mentally. But this approach backfires. The more we resist thoughts, the louder they become. It's called the paradox of thought suppression. Professionals often use metaphors like thoughts are like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. Instead, mindfulness-based strategies teach acceptance. Not agreement, but non-reactive observation. Josh, a grad student in Seattle, had intrusive sexual thoughts about children. He was horrified and thought he was a predator. But through therapy, he learned these thoughts were unwanted and meaningless. He practiced observing them without judgment, and over time, they lost their power. Acceptance isn't passive, it's a courageous stance that helps people disengage from mental warfare. A final mistake is expecting OCD to vanish completely. While some people do experience full remission, many learn to manage OCD like a chronic condition. The goal of treatment isn't to erase intrusive thoughts, but to reduce their impact and gain freedom. Emma, a nurse from Chicago, no longer needs to check locks for hours, but sometimes the thoughts still pop up. What's changed is her relationship to them. She can acknowledge them, smile, and say, "Oh, that's just my OCD again." That's not defeat, it's mastery. Professionals remind us, the goal isn't perfection, it's peace. OCD doesn't have to go away completely for life to be beautiful and fulfilling. Emily now wakes up, brushes her teeth, and walks out the door in 30 minutes. Her thoughts still whisper, but they no longer dictate her life. She's learned to live with uncertainty, to sit with discomfort, and to reclaim joy. OCD doesn't define her anymore. The mistakes we've talked about today aren't meant to shame, but to enlighten. Whether you're someone with OCD, a loved one, or a therapist, understanding these common pitfalls is the first step toward real healing. If you're struggling, please remember, you are not alone. You are not broken. And recovery, not perfection, but peace, is possible. Thank you for watching, and please consider sharing this message. Someone out there may need it more than you think.